Welcome back, folks. You're watching Cape Rugby TV. Nice to have you with us. Of course, lots of action happening in the world of Western Province Club Rugby. SK Walmers were up against Helderberg this past weekend. Jerome, you've been watching SK. I think that they are silently, in a manner of speaking, even though they had a great result against Kailsriver, obviously managed to keep Kailsriver out of the game. I think the score was 22-0 last week. But silently stabilizing, looks like, and getting stronger. I mean, they only had a 2-point difference against Hamilton's.
Yeah.
So SK Walmers is getting stronger, even though, so it's not quite fair to look at them in the log position at the moment, but they look like they are becoming a danger outfit.
Yeah, they will. I mean, there's a few new faces there, and a few younger players at SK. And obviously, with Sinclair, the coach there, and Paul Delport helping them, it's guys that's like Delport has a bit of experience. Sinclair's a young coach, very energetic. So I think the players feed off that, the two of them. So yeah, I think that help a lot. And like in the past, there were too many older guys at SK, which was good, but they've been carrying the club, but there's a lot of changes now in the club. Yeah.
Morgan, do you think the guys are starting to, I mean, we're now into week 4 or 5, are the guys getting a feel for each other now? I mean, Helderberg, who we're going to see now against SK Walmers, it's almost as if the first 2 or 3 games were testing games, and now we're into it and people have stabilized.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes we forget that SK Walmers went through that month of Ramadan just before the league started, so they can't train as much as they would have liked. You know, they wouldn't have put in the amount of sessions, haven't been able to play the games they would have liked. So they potentially, you know, they might have sort of jigged their season to suit what works for them.
Yeah.
They might have played 2 games before Ramadan, then gone through the month of Ramadan and used the first 2-3 league games as almost finding your rhythm. And I think you're starting to see it now with the way they're playing. They definitely are finding their rhythm a little bit later. But maybe earmark 1 or 2 games, you know. You're just going to get the top 6 at the end of the day, James.
Well, let's take a look and see how this pans out. This was, of course, SK Walmers against Helderberg. All right, there we go. halftime score there. Of course, you can see playing at the track. SK Walmers hosting Helderberg, and 2 points behind. Jerome, SK Walmers 10, Helderberg 12, halftime. What's going through their minds at the moment? Like I said, they're silently getting stronger.
Yeah, look, if they look at last year's season, this is actually halftime. This is actually a great result for them, and I'm sure their coaches will say, look, we have this game. We can actually, it's a home. We have to use our home ground advantage.
Yeah.
We can actually take this game. So just play in the right parts of the field, because it seems like Helderberg was dominating the lineouts, the set pieces. So hopefully you don't want them to be in your half. Just play in their half and just keep the scoreboard going.
Yeah. Close, the Morgan Helderberg is got the experience of playing consistent 80 minutes.
Yeah, we know that Helderberg can play 80 minutes. They play very consistently, very well for long periods. And so SK blow hot and cold one fields at times. And so at 10 points to 12, I don't think SK will be sort of anti the idea of that, because, you know, a little surge in the second half at home.
Yeah.
You know, that SK crowd gets behind them. It's that 16th man everyone always talks about. It's a difficult place to go.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, there we go. As Morgan said, it's never easy at the track. Well, let's take a look here. This is the second half. SK Walmers and Helderberg. All right, there we go. Final result. Well, looks like both teams managed to dig their heels in a little bit there. Jerome, final result then, 25 all, a draw. SK, a very much similar picture to what we saw at halftime.
Yeah, it is, but I think the second half was a little bit better, because both teams thought that they can really win this game. So the defense was a bit better. Wasn't like the first half. There was a couple of line breaks. It was too easy, but you can see the coaches basically said, like, you have to step up the defense if you want to win this game. So both teams, I think, they step up quite nicely there in the second half.
So that's a positive. What you're saying, Jerome, is actually very positive. I mean, Morgan, do you think that one walks away with this almost with the thought of, well, that was good enough for a win. We had a good turnout for a home game perspective. We had a good result in terms of we'll take the draw. And for a team who was playing an away game, also thought, well, we also didn't come off with a losing end on an away game.
Yeah, look, I think based on the form that Helderberg brought into it, they probably will be probably the more disappointed of the two, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But in the end, I suppose probably the right result, getting 2 points, you know, sort of for Helderberg away from home. SK Walmers haven't picked up that many big results just yet, besides the one at Kales River. So they may have earmarked this one for a 4-pointer or a 5-pointer. So bit of a caught between, you know, sort of not quite sure whether they're happy with it. And later on in the season, you will see whether this result is detrimental or benefited them in the long run.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see then for both sides where the other team ends up at. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to be taking a look at UWC and Brackenfell. Don't go away.